Donald Trump is dead. That is what you had tons of people saying over the weekend with searches of is Trump dead, and where is Trump just exploding on Google and taking up the top 2 trending topics on X. Right, and all of this, it started when people were like, hey, where's the president been for the last 3 days? I haven't seen him on TV actively trying to subvert the Constitution or just like crush somebody. Well, that would have been completely normal for Joe Biden, who you really didn't know what he was doing until all of a sudden he was like licking an ice cream cone or like falling down off of his bike. For many, it just didn't feel normal with Trump because he's one of the most visible figures on earth and he kind of bathes in everyone's attention. And so when this rumor took off, the last time anyone had seen him in public was during that rambling 4-hour-long cabinet meeting on Tuesday.
And most people say, if you call him a dictator, if he stops crime, he can be whatever he wants. I'm not a dictator, by the way, but he can be whatever he wants.
Right, and in that, you could clearly see the dark bruise on his right hand that observers have spotted since spring of last year. There's been a lot of focus on that hand of his, and for a lack of a better term, his cankles. And regarding his hand, you had some speculating it's from skin cancer or perhaps routine IV therapy for an undisclosed medical condition. But back in February, citing Trump's doctor, you had Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt blaming the bruise on a combination of aspirin and just shaking so many damn hands all day. Though that, it didn't satisfy many who were skeptical, who noted that Trump was making efforts to conceal his injury with very poorly applied makeup. And then, of course, in July, everyone noticed his swollen ankles, which is doctor diagnosed as chronic venous insufficiency, which he called a common and benign condition of being old. But again, you had skeptics insisting there's got to be more going on, and with that pointing to Trump's flubs and mental gaps, or the things that if and when Biden did or even got close to would just dominate the news cycle for weeks. So when he didn't appear in public on Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday, and then journalist Laura Rosen pointed out that his schedule had nothing planned for Saturday, Sunday, or Monday, people went wild. With some 200,000 posts on just X alone talking about did our 79-year-old president take his final breath. And also, when you went through them, many of them crossing their fingers. Right, in the midst of this, all of a sudden, things that didn't raise too many eyebrows initially became evidence of his supposed death. Right, like this answer that J.D. Vance gave on Thursday to USA Today, talking about whether he's ready to be president if Trump dies.
Yes, terrible tragedies happen, but I feel very confident the President of the United States is in good shape, is going to serve out the remainder of his term and do great things for the American people. And if, God forbid, there's a terrible tragedy, I can't think of better on-the-job training than what I've gotten over the last 200 days.
Right, and then you had things like this answer that Trump gave last month during an interview with Fox and Friends about Ukraine, in which he went off on a tangent about his own mortality.
I want to try and get to heaven if possible. I'm hearing I'm not doing well. I hear I'm really at the bottom of the totem pole. But if I can get to heaven...
Right, and then on the furthest fringes, you had some people even suggesting that the White House may have been flying flags at half staff because the president was already dead. There, that was actually for the school shooting in Minnesota. But notably, throughout this whole frenzy, you had Trump, or whoever posts for Trump at times, still posting on Truth Social in his usual all-cap style. The situation seemingly being put to bed on Saturday because reporters took photos of him golfing with his grandchildren at Trump National Golf Club in Virginia. Right, and that is you had the Daily Caller's Reagan Reese seemingly putting the final nail in the coffin with the post, I wake up to see people freaking out that Trump's sick or dead or something because he hasn't been seen in a few days. And saying, I was with the president yesterday afternoon, I interviewed him for an hour, he was lively and chatty. Trump then seeming to address it himself for the first time on Sunday, saying, never felt better in my life. So then with that, you had people saying, okay, well, he may be alive, that doesn't necessarily mean that he's healthy. And so while the rumors about his death died down, some people still clung onto the theory that Trump is still sick, claiming that he looks frail in the golfing photos. With then things popping off again yesterday when the White House said that Trump was going to make an announcement at 2 p.m. Eastern today, but gave no other details. With then many people spending the night speculating about this mystery announcement, which revived the rumors that there's some sort of health problem. With some even guessing that he might resign from office. But when the time rolled around today, that is not what we saw.
The U.S. Space Command headquarters will move to the beautiful locale of a place called Huntsville, Alabama, forever to be known from this point forward as Rocket City.
But then also, when he opened it up to questions, someone just asked him straight up.
How did you find out over the weekend that you were dead? You see that?
No.
People didn't see you for a couple days. 1.3 million user engagements as of Saturday morning about your demise.
Really?
You didn't see that?
You know, I have heard, it's sort of crazy, but last week I did numerous news conferences, all successful. They went very well, like this is going very well. And then I didn't do any for 2 days, and they said, there must be something wrong with him. Biden wouldn't do them for months. You wouldn't see him. And nobody ever said there was ever anything wrong with him, and we know he wasn't in the greatest of shape.
So seemingly for many liberals, today was a deeply disappointing day. But for some, the real letdown wasn't that Trump was alive. It was that his opponents let themselves get carried away by baseless rumors. Or with some comparing this to the never-ending the walls are closing in discourse that was especially prevalent during Trump's first term. Or even how you had some out there wishing that he was going to die when he contracted COVID in 2020. But that also, as you have many saying, that doesn't mean you should rush to the other extreme, where White House officials have long described Trump as having almost superhuman health and vitality. vitality. Right? Because people often forget this, but Donald Trump is human, and he is the oldest person to ever be sworn into the Oval Office. And if he makes it to the end of his term, he'll end up beating Biden's record for the oldest president ever. But where I'll leave this for now is, one, what are your thoughts, opinions, and maybe even your reactions and experiences to the general chaos and the speculation around this over the weekend? Two, I'll say the same thing to you as I said to other people when they were asking me, do you think Trump's dead? And I said no. And my reasoning there is, especially with this administration, but I think a lot of administrations, that's just too big of a secret to keep in for maybe even a few hours, let alone an entire holiday weekend. And three, regarding is he sick or, what's his health situation, definitely use your eyes and ears, be skeptical, but also be skeptical of things both ways. I saw a lot of people kind of just getting swept away in this. But then also for like a reminder, whether it be because he just finishes his term or something else happens, Donald Trump not as the president, like that doesn't mean MAGA goes away. Right? Yeah, there's going to be a power vacuum and there's a question of how big will it be? How long will that last? But if you're not a fan of Trump, that doesn't mean that you're going to be a fan more so or less so of what comes after him.